Hi folks, and welcome back to Old Trusty part number 17. And in the previous episode we actually repaired the hinges of the door. So now we can mount the door into the cabin and we can start working on the outer sill. Now this is what's left from the outer sill. Not really very much. So we have to build a piece that will fit right in here and that will attach to the inner sill, from the front all the way to the back. Now the inner sill is the gray part, and we've rebuilt that some time ago in one of the previous episodes. But now we need to build that new outer sill, and I think for me that's one of the most complicated parts on Old Rusty to build, because it is not a straight piece. It has a curve like this, and then it's wide and it gets smaller towards the front. As you can see here in the front of the bulkhead, you know, it really gets more narrow. So I'm going to build this in 3 sections. A middle section, which is going to be straight section, and I can bend all this on the bench. Then I will do a rear end section, and then the front part will build separately. This is going to be a little bit easier to build, but still it's going to take a little bit of time and effort to do it. So I'm going to start with the middle piece, and the middle piece we can always use a template, and that's typically what I use, a template, but this time I'm not going to make a template in cardboard, but I will use a piece of leftover sheet metal. And actually I'm going to bend the curves and the corners and the edges on what they should be, but I can only do that once the door is in. And once I've made that one model, then I will make the final piece. So without any further ado, let me put the door on now, and then we can start forming our template in steel. With the door installed and aligned around the edges, I can now start building the outer sill, more specific the centerpiece. And remember, I started saying that I would do it in one piece, the centerpiece at least. Well, that's going to be a bit more difficult because the distance from the bottom of the door to the bottom of the sill is different in the front and in the back, because it's kind of shaped. And as well, the distance between the inner sill and the outer part of the door is different in the front and in the back. Not that much, but it is different. So I have to find a way to build that sill properly, and bending it is not going to be that easy. So I'm going to make it in sections, and the first part I'm going to make is something like this, guys. And that's going to be the outer sill for the centerpiece, and it's only a section of it. So I'm going to roll it so I get this curve, and then I can mount it on it like so. And I'm going to clamp it in place, and then the top part won't be bent yet. That's something for later. It's going to stick out straight like this, and then I'm going to mark it so I have a proper gap, and then I'm going to bend that part. And once all that is welded in place on the bottom, I will then actually start working inside the door, because then I have a good reference and I will put the other sections up. So let me first build that piece now. Now the total distance, I think it's around 800 mil. I'm just going to do it up to the curve there, so I don't need to go much further than that. And 80 centimeters or 800 millimeters is just good enough. So I'm going to cut a piece of metal for that, and then we start going. I've fitted the sheet metal in the shear, and now I can cut it, and we can then start bending it. There we go. And here's the first piece that we're going to be using to build the outer sill. The first thing now is that we're going to cut it to 800 millimeters, because that's the length I'm going to need. If you're serious about rebuilding cars, and especially bodywork, then panel or metalworking tools are very handy. And what I have here is a 3-in-1 system. And it is not expensive, contrary to what people think. Obviously, this is not high-end, but it's good enough, and in fact, it's quite good. It actually is a shear, and you saw me cutting plate, sheet metal, It can cut up to 1.5 millimeters, and you have this bar here in the front, see that? Which is actually holding the plate flat so it doesn't bend up when you start cutting. So that's quite good. And you can cut up to about 100 millimeters. So that's really good. That's about 1 meter or 3 foot. At the same time, you can actually bend metal with this bench. And you've seen me bending lots of materials before. I'm just going to show you that one. And you just put it in between, and then you can just bend it. Yeah. The only drawback on this one is that you can only bend it up to 90 degrees angle. That's all you can do on this 3-in-1 system. These are plates you can remove, or knives, and I took a few out, as you can see. But you can stick them back in if you want, and then you have to undo these bolts first. The purpose of that is the ability to bend a box. So you can actually bend the box if you remove parts. So that's quite handy as well. And on the top part is the third part, and that's a rolling system. These are 3 metal rollers, and the adjustments are in the back, and that allows you to create a curve. Let me show you what I mean by that. First I need to stick it in, and then we'll roll it. I'm just gonna move it back, and then you'll see what I mean. So here it is. You see that curve that we just made? All right, we've got our sheet metal. And see if we can get it in. And then just roll it. And we might have to roll it a couple of times, back and forth. Yeah. All right, so that should be good enough. So, here's our piece. Here's the part we bended, and I need to make a little edge on this side that goes underneath the inner sill. So let's do that first. Let's see. Okay, that looks good. Yep. So let's try to fit it on the vehicle, and then we'll see where we go. So let's see if we can clamp in this piece now and then mark it later where we need to cut it. I'm using those very small vices. They are quite handy. So now what we need to do is to bend it along a line. So something like this. 3 centimeters. So this is 3 centimeters from the top. It's about 1. It's about 1 centimeter. But that's without the gap, so I still want to have a gap of 0.5 centimeter. We've bended the edge, we cleaned up the edge a bit, and now let's see if we can fit it. Okay, I've got this piece in. Of course, the gap is not equal yet, but it's still loose, so I will start welding it in place now, and then we'll form it back into where it really is supposed to be. And now I will have to drill a few holes in it so I can butt weld it onto the inner sill. So I drilled a whole bunch of holes so I can do butt welds, and now I'm going to grind off a bit the edges because they're a bit sharp. That looks good. So now I will clean up the bottom side of the inner sill so we can weld it properly. So here's the piece, and let's see if we can fit it into place. All right, let me just make it a bit stronger. There we go. And now I can weld right into that spot. And this is a semi-automat, which makes it very handy to weld, because all I need to do is put in the right thickness of the steel that I'm going to weld, and then everything else is adjusted. Right now it's set to 2.9 millimeters because I welded it before. So I'm going to set it to the thickness of the skin I'm having, which is about 0.7 or 1 millimeter. I think I'm going to go for 1. That will just do it. And I'm going to fill it up a bit. So you can actually make it not filling, and you can make it more filling. And that's what I'm going to do because I want to have it strong. All right, so we're also going to weld it at the inside in the different areas because that will make it a bit stronger. All right, so we've got it all welded in at the inside and on the outside, so that should be strong enough. I still need to clean up the inside, and then we'll spray it a little bit so it doesn't rust. And then we can start building this in a part here. I think I will have to make a template, and it's going to go up like this, like so, and then it will join the inner sill. So that's what we will do next. We still have to adjust the flange, but that's not that hard to do. Let's have a look if we close the door. Right. Here it's a bit too deep, so I have to bring it out a bit. And on this side, it sticks out a bit, but the tip of the door, as I said before, is going inwards a bit, so I need to bring that out. All right, so this is looking a lot better, a little bit more on the edge. It's a bit of bending, guys, but that's what it takes. We've got the outer sill now in place, and you've seen me bending it a bit and then putting it a bit into shape. The next thing we're going to do is actually to build a template, because I want it to come up like this and then go halfway like this, just underneath the door, and then come up again, and then finally rest on the inner sill. That's the kind of template we'll have to build now, and then we'll weld that piece into place. I created this template out of cardboard, which makes it easier now to actually build the final model in metal. Now you're probably going to wonder why I didn't show you why or how I built the cardboard template, but that's nothing special. It is just cutting some cardboard and measuring things in and out. But if you ever use a template or cardboard for that, make sure that the thickness is about the same thickness as the metal you're going to use, because otherwise you will have a bit of an offset. Right, I think the most important part is that the template fits nicely, and that you can actually close the door and the gaps are good, because otherwise you're going to have a problem. The idea is that once that is all good, and I've tried it out already, and I'll show you that in a minute, I will then move on and actually start forming it in metal, and that's a bit of cutting metal and bending metal, and you'll see that in a few minutes. So let's just close that door. I know that this side I added it afterwards, not a big deal, but let's see if that works. On this side, it's closing pretty good. So that looks good. So now we're going to remove the template and then actually start building it out of metal. So that will be a bit of bending work, but not that much. Okay, it's still stuck. There we go. So that's the model we're going to build. The good thing is I can flatten it out now, and then we just mark it on the bench. So let's start doing that. So here it is. All I need to do now is to flatten it like so, and then I can now transpose it to a piece of metal. And let's see if I have one. Here I have the sheet metal, and now all I need to do is to put it on there and mark it. It's cold here, guys. It's really cold. I think it's something around -2 degrees centigrade. All right, so now I'm going to flip this up like so, because this is going to be a bend. There we go. So let's start cutting this, and then we should be good to go. I did mark the edges with blue tape because it's easier to see, and then the arrows indicate the edge where I have to cut. So all right. So the first bend we need to do is that one. So we need to bend it like this. So we need to bend it along this edge. The problem is that I have this lip here and it's going to be bent as well, and I don't want it. So I will have to remove the last knife. So this is the good thing about this bench, that you can actually remove the blades. That's how easy it is. Yeah, that looks good. So let's bend it. Now I need to bend it upwards. So let's straighten this little piece out here. So that's the piece that we bended so far and we shaped a bit. It's not fully completed yet. I still have to bend it on this edge. But let's fit it and see how good or how well it fits. I need to put my glasses on because I see diddly squat without them. And I think this looks quite good. This stuff here probably needs to go on top of that. Yeah. That looks good. I still have to bend this piece over. But before I do that, I just want to make sure that the door is actually shutting. Let me try that. Yep, that works just fine. So that's good. So all what I have left to do now is actually to mark this area where I need to bend this edge. And I got this nice marker from my neighbor, Pierre. Thanks, Pierre. This is great. It's nice to have good neighbors, isn't it? And he saw me suffering with my other pencil. He said, oh, well, let me give you a nice marker. So That's great. So I'm going to use it. So let me mark this, and then we're going to bend it. There we go. And we do a little marking here because I need to cut some metal off, and already we'll do some marking here as well to cut some pieces off so we can weld it in nicely. And that should be it. Let me put the gloves on because it's a bit chilly here. Okay, so the last bend that we need to do is actually this one over here where the white line is. And I need to bend it that way. So that's going to be a little bit tricky on how to do that, because I don't have a lot of material to hold it onto. I clamped in the metal where I need to bend it with a couple of pieces of wood, and because I can't do it on the bench. So I'm going to use a metal bar, and then we will kind of knock it over. I already pre-positioned it a little bit, not to waste too much time. And let's do this side now. Tight. I may have to hammer it a bit in the beginning. It's fine. So before I fit the final part, I'm just going to make these cutouts. I've drilled a couple of holes so we can do the butt welds on top of the inner sill. But first of all, we have to weld along the bottom line here so we can join the upper part with the lower part. And that's the first thing we now need to do. I finished up welding in the piece all along the edge here, as you can see, and I cleaned it already up, so it's quite smooth, but it's not really ready for any finishing work. So I'm going to put some lead onto that one so we can make it nice and smooth. And then we'll fill up these holes here, and and I'm going to use some butt welding, and that's the term I learned from you guys. And then we should be good to finish off the edges. So this is what we call lead, and that's what I'm going to use to fill up the little uneven things on that welding seam. And I'm going to use some liquid to actually let the lead flow easier. It's called flux. And then of course I have my heat gun, which is a gas-based one. There you go. I just need to let it heat up, and then we can start working. All right. This is pretty nasty stuff, guys, so you always should wear goggles and gloves. I'm just going to pour a bit into here. That should be enough. And that's the brush I'm going to use. This is the brush I'm going to use to rub it in. I know it's a pretty big one, but that's all right. That's the one I have left over. So let's see if we can actually melt already some on it. Yeah, we can. That's good. All right, let's give it a try. And the next step is to take a bit of the roughness off. And the next step will be to fill up the butt holes. So I will now continue filling all the butt holes. So that's it. So guys, this is it. The butt welds are done. It looks quite good actually. I'm quite pleased with it. Even the seam here where we welded things together and then we put up the lead came out pretty nice. Of course we still have to put primer up, but that's quite normal. And for the rest I think it's quite alright. Let me see if the door is closing, because that might be a surprise maybe, or maybe not. Well, that closes and it's not hitting anything. Alright, that's good. It bangs a bit, but that's because everything is just bare metal and I still have to fix the lock. Alright, the next thing we're going to do in part number 17, which is not now, is fixing this rear end and the front end. And then basically this whole inner and outer sill is finished for once and for all. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm so sorry that you had to wait so long on this video, but I had other things to do. And you can tell that it's pretty cold as well. Yeah. So, I'll see you in my next video, guys. Happy holidays and all the best for you and your family. Bye-bye.